Hello, and welcome to episode 141 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I am your kind of new, but not that new host, Derek Heemsbergen. I am Embryonics on Twitter. That's at EMBRYONX. And I am joined by some fresh and familiar faces today. First up, we have Caitlin Kingdom Mode Ardros.
And what a kingdom it is. I still have to make it as big and beautiful as it can be. I am at Leanne_Kazero on Twitter and same on Discord. I'm old-fashioned that way. I've kept the same name for ever. So
yeah, me too. I have pretty much the same one everywhere. And we also have Mike, who you calling a Deviljho Solosi, something like that, right? What is his name? Deviljho?
Deviljho, but
Who are you calling a Deviljho Solosi? How about that?
Yeah, the murder pickle basically turns into Deviljho if you just switch around two consonants. So yeah, you're right. I'm totally Deviljho.
Oh, speaking of Deviljho, I've been playing a lot of Stardew Valley, but
oh my. And
who are you on Twitter, Mike?
I am at The Real Monsoon on Twitter, and if you see an RPG fan thing with Monsoon in the title, it's probably me.
Wonderful. And then we're also joined by Robert Crap on a Cracker Fenner.
That's me. Bad taste in more ways than one. At Misanthrobob on Twitter, and you know from Derek's introduction that I'm playing some classic Falcon games this week.
Yeah, you are, which is just wonderful, and I can't wait to discuss because I haven't played that one yet, so I'm going to need some perspective. And then finally, it's a full house today. We've also got Nathan, put a fatal bullet between my eyes, Lee.
Oh, that's such a true statement. I can't wait to talk about that. I am Smash King on Discord and at Smash King 27 on Twitter.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you all for being here today in Rob's absence. I don't know how we're going to live up to it, guys, but I sure as hell am going to try. I think I'm just going to get all of my nervous energy out right now because what the hell? I've been doing this podcast for so many episodes now. We're on 141 and I haven't been on every one, but suddenly it's pressure is bearing down on me as the host. So I'm sure everything will go just swimmingly, but Rob will be missed and we will continue to prod him to get back on the show in short order. So we have a lot of games to talk about today, which is the usual for us, because especially if you have 5 people present, each of us has been playing different stuff. So there's plenty to delve into today. And I think we're probably going to start with some of the shorter beats. Solosi, I know that you have been going pretty hard on some of the Batmans, correct? As Robert always says.
Yes. A couple weeks ago when I was on the podcast, I talked about the Telltale Season 2 of Batman, which is called The Enemy Within. And at that time, I had only played the first 3 episodes. And since then, I have finished off this season of it, and there should be a review up on the website. I'm not sure what the timing of that is yet. And just the short version, this is a big, busy Batman story with a bunch of DC Comics people in it, but really it's a Joker origin, and it's a really, really cool version of a Joker origin. The fifth episode, where you sort of confront the Joker that you sort of helped create over the course of the game, is really, really dramatic and fun, and I kind of want to replay it again just to see how different versions of the Joker can play out.
I was kind of wondering how much of a spoiler it was in the marketing that I've seen for this game, because I haven't played it. I've seen my roommate play through a decent amount of it, not watching over his shoulder, but he's been playing it in the common space, and so I've glanced at it. But in the marketing for episode 5, it's talking about, choose Joker's fate. So is that something that they allude to pretty early? Do you know from the get-go that that's what's going to happen?
I'm not sure if you went in from the beginning with no marketing knowledge and no research that that's what it's building towards. It's pretty clear from the beginning that Joker's the most important character you interact with other than Batman. And there's a lot of decisions involving him and a lot of heartfelt talks involving him. He transforms more with each episode. He starts out almost like a little puppy dog. He thinks Bruce Wayne's his best friend. He hero worships Batman, and he's madly in love with Harley Quinn, which is I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, is a nice flip from how it usually is.
Version, yeah. Yeah,
and basically, and how you interact with Joker and Harley and all the other characters basically will turn him to feeling more basically he'll be pulled, the Joker character, who's called John Doe for most of the series, will be pulled in different directions. And I think there's basically only 2 final tracks, whether he's a traditional Joker that wants nothing more than to have Batman break his code and cause chaos, and a different version of the Joker who is a vigilante who wants to be like Batman. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's I don't know if it's more nuanced than just those two final paths. But the path I took was really fun and interesting, and the dialogue was clever. And again, it's a bit of a slow burn up to the final episode, but the final episode of Enemy Within is really, really good Telltale. If you have patience for Telltale's crap, which is still ever present.
Yeah, that's the main thing I was wondering, like the duality, either him being a vigilante or a villain. So that was like, it was in my face on a Facebook ad, and I was like, okay, if I hadn't played this, then I might be annoyed to know that was sort of how it would turn out. But
yeah, I saw it on YouTube a lot in the past couple weeks before it came out, and I don't know, I mean, how much of that's tailored to me, because I do, watch some comic book and fighting game things on YouTube a lot, but. Yeah, it was weird that they had I hesitate to call it a spoiler, but it's such like a big plot point ever present in the media for the game. That's a little weird.
But I mean, I think fans were probably expecting not the duality angle, but that it was going to be about Joker and how he becomes Joker, because ever since he was a cameo at the end of the first series, I think we all expected, well, he's going to show up in the next series, and it's probably going to show him becoming Joker, since that's the first season introduces a couple of rogues and shows how they become those rogues, because we are very early on in Batman's crime fighting career. So that might have been why they felt a bit more free to be, a little bit more spoilery, is because they probably figured, well, the fans expect it. They know what's going to come. They just don't know how. So we can let the cat out of the bag a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, and they're not trying to hide it. I mean, John Doe, from his introduction at the end of the first season, is pale skin, green hair, prone to laughter. I'm not. They're not trying to make it a surprise that he becomes the Joker.
Gotcha.
But Caitlin's assessment was right, and that's the main narrative thrust of the second season is John Doe becoming the Joker.
Okay. And since I don't really follow Batman all that much independently or at all, would you say? I mean, I know Batman basics, and I've seen the movies and the Dark Knight movies and everything. But would you say that the characterization in this dramatically differs in any way that makes it significantly more interesting, other than the inversion of Harley and Joker, who likes who?
No, they mostly stay within traditional representation. I mean, it's really about the Joker, how timid he starts out, and before he turns into what he eventually becomes. But most of the time, the characters and situations sit comfortably within how Batman has always worked. But they do a couple subversions of it that I think are at least interesting. A couple major characters die in season 2, and the biggest one is probably something from season 1. Is it okay if I spoil it? It's the first episode of season 1 of Batman.
What is this right now? Season 3?
This is season 2 that just finished.
This is just still 2. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not.
Okay. Yeah, but Batman learns something in episode 1 of season 1, which was 2016. That sort of hangs over the whole series. That is not something that happened in comics or movies.
Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't played these yet, but from what I understand, it is basically its own continuum. So I could see them heavily hinting at this trajectory that the Joker may or may not take to, since they have that extra leeway, I suppose.
They're definitely being given leeway, because there's
a big old what if, and you choose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that the season wrapped up in a satisfying way and that you liked it. And does it seem like there's a pretty definitive season 3 coming? Do we know?
I don't think we know. The real showstopper in season 5 is the final decision that you make, which is sort of in an epilogue space.
In episode 5?
Sorry. Episode 5 of season 2, which is in an epilogue and not in a confrontation exactly. And the ramifications of that decision, I think, will affect if there's a season 3 or not. It was a good moment, and if there's a season 3, I would play it, but I don't know if they're going to go ahead with it, especially since Telltale, I think, has made a bunch of layoffs and cuts recently, so maybe they might be scaling back in the future.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it sounds like it was still pretty successful. So. Cool. Good to hear it. Well, and as long as you've got the floor, Solosi, I wanted to ask you about a little something called Monster Hunter World, which I have also been playing. So it's not like, we've discussed it a bit on the show already, but I could have sworn that was called, I thought it was Deviljho, but like looking at it, it looks like Deviljho.
No, it's Deviljho, but there's an H in the Joe that maybe throws you off a little bit.
Okay.
But
maybe this wiki is misspelled and I shouldn't be trusting random Monster Hunter wikis. But
I'm pretty sure it's spelled right. It's just always had that kind of weird pronunciation. So I just call it Deviljho.
That's fair. Okay, well, so I already butchered Deviljho, but has
everyone calls
butchered you?
Everyone calls it the murder pickle anyway, so you can just call it pickle or murder pickle.
See that slimy?
Yeah, and I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter since that game came out in late January, and since the beginning, Capcom's DLC plan has been new monsters and new quests will be free DLC, and things like emotes and some costumes will be paid DLC.
Right. Which is, a pretty fair plan, I think, because I'd much rather, like, if I'm going to pay for DLC in a game, I either want it to be a really well thought out, substantial sort of narrative addition, or something that doesn't fill in a gap that wasn't necessary, if that makes sense. Like, so basically, don't give me Final Fantasy 15, give me what I've seen of Ni no Kuni 2, which is like, Ni no Kuni 2 feels like a finished story to me. And if they want to add more narrative on top of that maybe fleshes out a side character, I'm cool with that. So in the for something like Monster Hunter World, I like that the core content is being offered, for free to the people who are playing it, which, by the way, there's not even a monthly sub for this. You have to have PlayStation Plus, but the fact that there's no additional monthly sub, I think, is fantastic if they're going to continue adding content, because normally that's how they justify it. It's like, okay, well, we're going to keep adding more to it, but we need the sub money. So, yeah, for them to do that, they can charge $5 for an emote. I don't care, because I'm not going to buy it. So if I really wanted to, then, I guess I could. But I'm thinking about, because Persona 5 never got any DLC. Persona 5 never got any narrative DLC. Sorry, is what
right.
It didn't get an extra story. It got lots of
costumes and BGM mostly, I think.
Yeah, and
personas, yeah.
I think and some personas, but as far as I know, none of those were game breaking in any way. With the Persona 5 DLC, it's overpriced. I think those costume packs cost too much, but I think you're paying for the license to the music. So the fact that those are just they're cosmetic and referential in a fun way that doesn't feel trashy, that I still think they cost too much, but I'm okay with that DLC model, as long as it isn't anything that can sort of give me an unfair advantage in the game, or as long as the DLC isn't there to fix, to plug a leak basically in the story that should have been there or shouldn't have been there from the get-go. So that being said, so I appreciate this model for Monster Hunter. So have they said what the next edition is going to be after Deviljho?
Not the next monster, but they have said that there will be more, and they introduced some things like a Dante from Devil May Cry costume and charge blade weapon, and they announced a special spring festival event which will add fireworks to the main village area and allow you to play any previous event quest that was only weekly and limited before for I think 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and the Deviljho quest itself is basically Deviljho will appear randomly in the wild once you encounter him once. Once you encounter him once, that's redundant. I apologize. Once you meet him, you can do a special quest which is voiced and scripted and has some some bare bones story attached. That will be your first official Deviljho hunt, and once you've completed that, he'll start appearing in all quests in high rank, randomly crashing your hunts and just being a jerk in general, kind of like a Basil Juice.
That feels a little Darkest Dungeon. What is it, Crimson Court to me? The expansion where once vampirism happens, once you've had that enabled, can't your characters become vampires at any point? I remember Rob saying something about once you have access to that, then it sort of adds this additional layer of complexity / difficulty to the rest of the game.
Yeah, that's when you move
Isaac 5 times.
Yeah.
Isaac?
Yeah, that if you beat it 5 times, it just ups the difficulty and throws in a bunch of new bosses.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could at least create a new save if you just wanted to go totally fresh, right? But
I think you'd have to. I think it's only one save per account.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I just wonder how the introduction of Deviljho might throw off some of the balancing in Monster Hunter World, but does it seem like it's pretty fair or not a big deal?
It's fair. When you move from low rank to high rank, monsters will crash your hunts and interfere with your missions more often. And the monster that does that the most is Basiljuice, which is this, this flying wyvern that has this explosive scales that it drops on you. And with like when he enters your hunt, the shadow will appear over you, and the music will change, and you'll be like, "Oh no! Gotta get out of here!"
The explosive swag.
Yeah, and Deviljho plays basically the same role. It's in the Monster Hunter lore, it's a wanderer that is just eating nonstop, and so it's always hunting other monsters and hunters. But the countermeasure for those is you can, if you collect dung and refine dung into dung pods, whenever you hit a monster with dung, they will always immediately escape and change areas. So
you're like to collect and sling poop.
Collect and sling poop, which is to make sure that you're only hunting one at a time, because if a monster interferes with your hunt, sometimes they'll start fighting each other, and that can be great, or sometimes they'll both start attacking you, and that's the opposite of great. So having a supply of dung pods to control the flow of the battle a little bit is very important, and it's your main countermeasure against Basiljuice and Deviljho.
Okay.
But
also, I chuckled at like controlling the flow with dung.
And I should mention maybe my favorite thing about Deviljho is its interactions with other monsters are just brutal and awesome. It's a big Tyrannosaurus looking thing, so it'll usually pick up other monsters with its jaws and just slam them against scenery over and over and deal hundreds of damage to them. And sometimes it'll pick up smaller ones and wield them like a club and try to hit you with the other monster that's struggling to escape Deviljho's mouth. So it's just there's a lot of interactions and animations and stuff that they added with the Deviljho DLC that is real fun. And plus, Deviljho is a popular monster from I think Generation games.
That's what I was gonna say. He's like a legacy monster that people were hoping to see.
Yeah, I think he was announced pretty early, like around the time of launch. But and there's already Japanese and English language fan polls trying to pick the next one, and the most popular answer is pretty consistently Zinogre.
Yeah, we gotta see that guy back.
Yeah.
And what does he look like, or what does he do?
He's a blue and gold thunder wolf that howls and does big tail slams, and it's just cool looking in general. He was in the last PSP Monster Hunter game that North America never got.
Okay, so if he looks cool, then whatever you carve off of him and make into your jacket is going to look cool too, right?
Yeah, it'll be very jagged and golden and turquoise. Probably.
I can get behind that and into that, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad to hear Monster Hunter is still going well. I've seen my partner play a ton of it, and it's like I'm almost exhausted by watching some of the high rank hunts because I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah,
I'm nowhere near that.
I've done most of the hunting I want to do. I think I'm going to try to scale back on my monster hunting and maybe just play it. Instead of playing it every day for hours like I did for a month and a half, just maybe a couple times a week and when new DLC comes out, because goodness knows there's a lot of games to play in 2018, and I should probably play more than one.
Monster Hunter World Methadone.
Yeah, I need to... I need to wean myself off the hard stuff, that's for sure.
Might I recommend Stardew Valley? Because, holy
crap.
You're
going to fall down a hole.
Yeah, I need my own methadone for that because holy crap, I have played so much of that over the last week. But that's
on Switch, right?
Yeah, I got it on Switch because I want to mess with the multiplayer update on the console. So, well, cool. Monster Hunter World continues to be a really good game. So, thanks for sharing the info about Deviljho, which I will forever remember how I said at the beginning of this episode. Okay, let's move on to something a lot more anime and something that So the funny thing is, before I heard his take on it, I thought that this one was going to be sort of like elevated or a little bit better than the rest of its contemporaries. So Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet is the newest video game spin-off of the Sword Art Online anime franchise. Now, I've only seen the first season of the anime, and I thought it was pretty okay. I've heard that it goes off the rails, especially with some like gross emoto stuff.
They've got an AI baby.
You mean the first arc of the first season?
Yeah, that does happen. So like the games, I think I played, what was it? It was either Hollow Realization or whatever the one after that for PS3? No, PS4 it must have been. I can't remember, but I played one of them like fairly briefly. It wasn't the one with the god awful translation, but it was.
I played the retranslated
so
version.
Lost Song and then Hollow Realization.
So
yeah.
Okay. So there's Hollow Fragment and Hollow Realization. Are those different?
Yes.
Okay. So I played one of those. I don't know. I thought it was not super great, but it seemed like an interesting vessel to sort of convey sort of online fan service. So Fatal Bullet is the newest one, and as far as I know, it's set in like because the characters in the game are playing MMOs. So I guess this is like they're playing a new game that's a shooter.
Yeah, it's Gun Gale Online.
Okay, so it's more of an action-y shooter type. I've heard it called Anime Destiny. How do you feel about that comparison?
So it's the Dirge of Cerberus of the Sword Art Online world.
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps. I guess that's a kind of fair comparison. I would compare it more to Freedom Wars. If anyone would play that, it's the same development team, but it's the same kind of idea as Freedom Wars.
Okay, so in it you're playing as a custom avatar, right? And like Kirito is there doing something?
Okay, so you play as your own custom avatar. Kirito is in the game. You do get to play as him later on in the story, but like really late in the story, so you can interact with the other with his usual band of characters. Until then, you're stuck with your own guy.
Okay, and so what's your overall impression of the game? You finished it and you just reviewed it, right?
Yeah, I just finished writing a review of it for it last night. This is not good. That might be the worst of the series, which is really disappointing because, as you mentioned, this one looked like it would be a lot better than the other Sword Art Online games, just because, like, I trust.
A lot different.
Sorry.
At least just different and not like the same rote MMO, like fake MMO type thing that the other ones have been doing.
I guess so. I knew what to expect. It was going to be like the same kind of MMO style going into it, just with being a shooter instead of being like an action game, or like a fantasy action game. But yeah, this is not good. There's way too many issues with this game.
Okay, well, where do you start listing the issues then? What's like the main thing? How's the combat?
So the combat's actually pretty good. That's probably the best thing about it. So the game gives you an assist mode for being able to. So basically, it's kind of like a little box that appears, and within the box there's a little circle that there's enemies within. If you shoot in that general area, then you'll be able to deal damage. So it basically just allows you to run, gun, roll, do whatever you want while you're shooting them. That's part's pretty fun. You can just these nice combat's nice and fluid there. But everything else is just an issue. Like probably right away, the first thing I noticed was there's a lot of loading for the game. So basically, whenever you enter a new area, or even if you transport within the same on the same map, and then you go to like a different waypoint on the map, it still has to load for like 10 seconds. Even though I could have just ran there and less time to take to load.
Well, what system were you playing the game on?
On PS4.
Okay, so do you think it might be better on the PC version, or is it just badly optimized?
I'm pretty sure it might be better on PC, but I don't trust Bandai Namco with PC ports. At least they're not very consistent with those. So I'm not sure how the PC version is. Actually, one of my friends has. I should have asked him about it beforehand.
But load times are definitely a problem.
Yeah,
they're just way too long. And I think near the middle of the game, it did the Sonic 06 thing where the had loaded a cutscene. No, well, not that. But it loaded a cutscene. The character said one thing, and then had to load again. And I was just like facepalmed as soon as it happened. I was like, "Are you serious?" And then
I think that happened in Hollow Fragment as well, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, did it?
Yikes!
Lots of weird problems like that on PS4. And that was an up-res Vita game.
yeah.
But the kicker was that it was right in front of the area I need to go to, so I still had to load again to get to that next area. So that was not fun.
Okay, so your issues are mainly stemming from like the optimization and the flow of the game and stuff, more so than like how's the story? Is it
the
decent?
story is also bad.
Okay. What's bad about the story?
Mostly because your character's not really silent, but he doesn't really have a voice outside of combat. So you kind of just pick the generic, answers to questions like, oh, like what do you think of me, or that kind of thing, right? Or what's what I'm looking for? Yeah, they're the characters that they introduce. They always introduce new characters with every single Sword Art Online game. I couldn't get into these particular characters. So there's your typical childhood friend character, and then there's kind of like a new mentor character that they introduce. and they're just boring, and I didn't care about them. Even because you play as like a character that would. Sorry. One thing I want to bring up first is basically before you start the new area, the reason why you started playing the game is because your childhood friend invited you to play because a new area is going to open up soon. But before you could open up the new area, you have to go and find the parts to fix your AI partner. That's the main new update of the game, was they introduced AI partners. So you have to find the parts for your AI partner, but this takes like over half the story to looking for the parts for your partner, and in between that, nothing really happens in the story.
My.
So basically, it's just a fetch quest for over half the game, and nothing happens. It's just like, go to this area and get this part. Oh, I heard a rumor about the parts in this area, or just so it's
Gotcha. So it's
yeah.
massively padded.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like getting the airship parts for Ren in Phantasy Star 3, but an entire game of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fetch Quest Forever is my least favorite alliteration of 2018 so far.
Okay.
Hashtag that.
So even for Sword Art Online fans, maybe this is one to skip.
Yeah, unless you're hardcore or you like this particular arc of the story, because some people do like this arc of the story. They introduced Shinon, who is a lot of people's favorite Sword Online character. So unless you like that part, then I'd say skip it, because there's just so many issues.
All right. Fair enough. Well, thanks for being the one to endure that so that we didn't have to.
You can read my review of it. It'll be out, I assume, in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, there you go. There's the place to go if you want to find out more about it. Check out the main page, rpgfan.com.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about a game that I've been playing. I've got two to bring up today, but the first one, I think I'm the only one here who's played it. So every year I review the Atelier games, whatever, Atelier, whatever you want to say. I always pronounce it a million ways because they're not consistent in the localization, how they want to pronounce it. So it's crazy to think that they're continuing to pump these out at an annual rate. And before, I was surprised at the level of quality they managed to maintain. Not so anymore. So the latest one is Atelier, Lydie and Suelle, The Alchemists and the Mysterious Paintings. This is the third and final entry in the mysterious, quote unquote, trilogy. So the series tends to be separated into these little, like usually trilogies that are in an umbrella. So this is like, in the mold of the series, the Atelier series, it's a story about a young person or people who are alchemists, and they are working in a workshop to synthesize items and like generally solve problems of people in their country, or maybe they want to go on an adventure or something. So the core conceit of this one is the Airhead twins, Lydie and Suelle, are trying to become the best Atelier in their like country. And
they want to be the very best.
Like no one ever was. Yeah. Thank you. And so they're trying to run this workshop, and it turns out that they can enter these paintings called mysterious paintings. And inside each of these, excuse me, there's another world that just exists sort of as a little microcosm. And they can go in there and they can take things out of them and bring them back into the real world. So it becomes a way for them to sort of create unique items, and it gives them a leg up on becoming famous alchemists, because they have a way to go and get all of these rare materials from inside these paintings. Now, they're not the only ones in the world who can do that. Like, all the characters who end up joining your party can come with you. So I'm not really sure why they are so special, or like why anybody would entrust them with being able to, enter these other worlds and take stuff out of them. But that's the flow of the story. They're trying to restore these paintings that they find one by one and raise the rank of their workshop so that they can be famous or whatever, because it was the wish left to them by their dead mother. So that is an okay narrative hook that I don't really have any problem with necessarily. So where this really lags behind for me is like every other conceivable area. So the Mysterious trilogy has been getting steadily worse. The first one was Atelier Sophie, and I thought that one was okay. It had sort of a weird wrinkle to its battle system where you would queue up your attacks and then execute all at once, and it felt sort of like hands-off and janky.
Oh, that's a little Disgaea-esque.
Yeah, but it didn't really work for this series, because they try to switch something up every single game, so that's how they try to do it with Sophie, and I didn't think it was entirely successful. The big thing that they switched up with the subsequent game, Atelier Ferocious, was hers was all about going on a journey. So instead of having a home base where you would create your items that you acquired the ingredients for via combat, exploring, etc., she was out on a journey. So she had like a TARDIS-esque atelier that she could put anywhere and then go inside it, and there was a whole customizable area. It was really, really ugly and cramped, and I felt like the big problem with that game is that they tried to basically create an open world game out of it, and the world was just hideous. Like, it was really badly optimized. It ran like crap. It wasn't fun to explore because it didn't have anything interesting in it, and like the story and characters were just abysmal. So I was hoping that this newest one would turn that on its head, and I don't think that it does. So instead of going into a much larger open world to explore, this one is focused around sort of exploring a lot of smaller worlds that are more, at least thematically, distinct. So you have like a painting that's the spooky forest, so it's a Halloween-esque thing, and you have one that's the Crystal Caverns, and you have one that's like a volcano area. So they're fairly stock RPG locations, but at least they feel like they're different worlds, as opposed to like, here's the forest, and here's the further out forest, and there's the forest after that, and then I guess there's a desert. So like the areas, this game isn't running well. First of all, it's badly optimized. There are a lot of frame drops in these areas, and it'll drop to like 15 or lower, which surprises me because I think this is actually the worst looking one yet in the series. They've gone from this soft, really beautiful cel-shaded character portrait style to kind of like a generic low budget anime style. And I don't particularly like the character designs either, but that's neither here nor there. So the game, one, isn't running well. Two, the big difference this time is so they're like exploring these smaller worlds, and B, they can, in battle, they do a thing where they can battle mix, quote unquote. So normally you're synthesizing items in your workshop at home, and then you take those out into the world with you, because traditionally, like, the main characters who are alchemists aren't very strong, so you're relying on the items you made to get you through battle, like bombs and stuff. In this one, they can create items in the heat of battle, sort of triggered by various conditions, and then they throw them out. And characters also fight in pairs, kind of like Suikoden 3, but the characters aren't actively. It's not like there are two characters in a line that are actively attacking together at the same time. It's like, if I have, Liddy in the front and Suel in the back, maybe if I do a healing ability, then the one in the back will like follow up with a specific thing to restore my MP as well, something like that. So depending on where you place them, there are some triggers that activate different abilities, and that's okay. I just don't feel like the battle mixing thing is especially compelling or different. It just sort of feels like what they've done before. I'm just kind of going into each system here one by one. But the biggest problem that I have with this game is just like, oh my God, the characterization is so outrageously annoying.
You've got quite the amazing video on your Twitter.
That was just like, all I did was take some clips of like, I was playing for maybe half an hour, and then every time something irritating happened, I just hit, I hit the share button way less than the number of times irritating things happen. But I just spliced together like 30 seconds of clips from the game, because I don't understand who the target audience is for these characters who are like shrill babies who can't do anything on their own. They're constantly crying and whining about stuff, and they have the highest pitched voices of any character I've heard in a game in so long. It's just like they're constantly shrieking about this and that. So what I really liked about this series in the earlier stages especially is they tended to be like slice of life kind of not very epic in scope stories, but they were generally about a young person, usually young girls, having a journey of self-discovery or growth. And maybe they would start out weak, but they would generally grow in like a decently meaningful way, so that by the end of the journey, I'd be like, oh, I like them. Maybe she started out kind of timid, but she really came into her own. With this game, Lydia and Suel, the two twin girls who are the protagonists, they're just like constantly shrieking and yelling, and I don't know, they're incompetent all the time, and I don't really see an opportunity for growth so much as I see the writers of the game created these characters so that you are. It's like it's a moe thing. I think they want you to feel protective of these characters because they're so bumbling. But I just find them to be absolutely obnoxious.
Like two broke girls open an atelier.
Yeah. Oh no.
But
at least Kat Dennings' voice.
I was going to say
Kat Dennings.
So high. Yeah. So like you guys mentioned the video I took. I just took this clip and put it on Twitter of the girls. I was just running around gathering stuff, and she's just constantly screaming about like, "Oh no, I touched a bug!" And when she levels up, she goes like, "Never do apple." It's like, holy shit. Sorry, I shouldn't be kidding. But it's unbelievable. So I'm really stuck on this, it sounds like, probably because I am. But I'm not interested in playing a story that has infantile characters who won't grow, and I don't see that happening in this game. I'm over halfway through it, and so far the entire thing is just like, oh, cute girls like sit around eating sweets. And I get that there's an appeal to a degree, and I'm fine with that to a degree, but it's like so I don't really know how to explain this. It just feels like it's marketed towards like a totally unknowable fan base. Like, who is the person who's like, oh yeah, I want to play as dumb characters who like have no agency and just sit around talking about how cute things are and never like develop or do anything interesting.
It sounds like it's been like super like made by a committee or like super focus tested until they just completely lost sight of anything at all. And it's like that that comic strip from Welcome to the NHK, where they're trying to like make the most moe character ever, and it's like she's got Down syndrome, and she's a maid, and she's a cat girl, and she's got rickets, and she's in a wheel.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it feels like with these two characters.
And there's no hope at all of them, even if it's abruptly right before a final boss, just suddenly turning into confident badasses. You've given up on that.
It's possible, but I don't see it happening. At least not in a way that I'll find organic or even compelling.
It didn't happen in Blue Reflection.
Right, yeah, which was another game that was just like cute girls sitting around talking about eating sweets. So that's by the same developer, Gust. So I feel like they've gone from knowing how to write characters to, like, as Robert said, whatever focus tester points we can hit on, we'll just hit all of them at once. It doesn't matter.
I don't claim to be an expert on moe or these types of anime characters or anything like that, but I know there's a Japanese word that's either denpa or dempa, which is sort of a clumsy, cute kind of connotation. And
nonsense.
Okay, yeah, and there's a dempa idol girl band that did the most infuriating cover of the Beastie Boys' Sabotage that I've ever heard in my life.
What?
And that was my first association with you posting that video on your Twitter, Derek. So yeah, thanks for that unpleasant memory.
Oh, you're super welcome. So I think maybe I'm channeling Rob today. Maybe his spirit is just like lingering in the air, and that's what's making me go on a rant like this. But I try to be balanced in my assessments of stuff, and I do think that this game has it has a decent battle system. But I don't really know what else to say. I don't think the world is fun to explore. I don't like the characters. I don't like the story trajectory. I don't really like the music. I think it's not great. The voice acting is atrocious. Like, it's just it really feels like a further fall from grace, because I was worried after Atelier Furious that the series might be headed downhill, but then maybe they could recoup. And at this point, I'm so thoroughly uninvested that I don't see myself playing another game in the series unless it's a radical shakeup. So
sounds like this Atelier needs to close for remodeling.
God.
It seems like annualism has really, really hurt this series.
I think so too. I think they're so concentrated on getting these out at a consistent pace that they're not really focusing on what the individual components of it are. They're just doing the whole like, let's change it up to change it up. But how should we do it? I don't know. Let's ask a focus group. Make them more moe. Okay, sure. We'll add all these moe traits.
There's so little time between these games. I feel like the last one wasn't even a year ago.
Yeah, it was about a year. So, and also last year they did two. They did Atelier Chalet Plus and then Furious in the same year. Sorry, you were going to say, Nathan?
Also, we should probably take a break for a year and kind of review things.
I
don't know how the sales are, so maybe they won't take a break.
The old Assassin's Creed Origins strategy.
Did they take a break for a year? Was that the result?
And make it into an RPG.
Oh, well. Yeah, so I think
they took 2016 off of Assassin's Creed. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So, my review of this game will be up probably within the next week or so, and it probably won't be pretty. So, thank you for bearing with my rant. Again, the spirit of Rob was powerful, and he compelled me to do it. So, I apparently can't take responsibility for my own actions. So, moving on from something that's cute and not super great to something that's cute and pretty great. So, Robert, you've been playing the second Zwei game to be localized, but the first Zwei game in the series, which is Zwei the Argus Adventure. How's that going?
That's correct. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and say it's super great. But I do like this game. Zwei is a peculiar little duology of action RPGs that Falcon put out between 2001 and 2009. We got the second game, as Derek said, I think it came out on Halloween last year on Steam. And just as recently as January, we received the first game, which... although the two games look vastly different, Zwei, the Ilvard Insurrection, is a 3D action RPG, and this is a 2D and very, very beautifully hand-drawn action RPG, but they do share a lot of mechanics. These are the adventures of I almost said Popico and Pipimi, but that's
oh no, that's a very different pair of adventurers.
That would be a game. Paco and Pipiro, who are a boy and girl who live on the floating continent of Argus in Puck Village, where Paco spends his days coming up with really annoying puns, and Pipiro is more interested in her beauty regimen. And the two of them, they're mismatched, and they're kind of like brother and sister, and maybe they're also like, maybe they will, maybe they won't, who knows.
The moonlighting of our day.
Yeah, you've seen this before.
Mm.
So Pipero and Paco, they're just hanging out one day, minding their own business, when a mysterious masked man rolls into town, steals all of the magical artifact statues from the shrine, and you have to go through a whole bunch of dungeons to get them back. Gosh, what can I say? Derek, you played Zwei, the Ilvard Insurrection.
I did.
I think you're pretty fond of that.
I thought it was pretty cute. The thing is, this is a Falcom game, so it's not...
It's a very rough Falcom game as well.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, what I liked about the Ilvard Insurrection was that it felt like there were lots of cute nuggets of like personality injected here and there in what would otherwise be a fairly rote action RPG. I don't think that the combat in the Ilvard Insurrection is very good. I think it's just sort of like, swing your weapon a bunch, and then the dungeon design is pretty much just like a series of winding hallways. But and I guess from what I've heard, Argus Adventure is fairly similar dungeon design wise.
Dungeon design is pretty much the same. I mean, there's not going to be any of the platforming or moving elevators like there are in Ilvard Insurrection. It's it looks a little roguelike-esque, but it's not procedurally generated. Hallways, rooms with monsters, flips and switches, unlock doors. Combat really makes Ilvard Insurrection feel like an action RPG masterpiece. When playing as Paco, you press a button and he slides across the floor towards an enemy without animating, and Pipero also throws a fireball without animating, which it's fine. It's not a whole lot of fun to play, but like Ilvard Insurrection, it has a lot of heart. It's got a very, very funny localization from Xseed, who always bring their A game, frankly. Not biased. But the characters are cute. The world is, as I said, the hand-drawn environments are really a sight to behold, especially Puck Village, which has like this sort of high-up bird's-eye view where your characters are small and running around this wonderfully hand-painted village scene. Maybe a little bit like something like Saga Frontier 2.
It's so funny that you were going to say that. I was going to say that the backgrounds reminded me of Saga Frontier 2, or maybe Rhapsody, a musical adventure.
Yeah, actually, that's more spot on. It's very similar to Rhapsody, and it's a style that I really, really like. And I've wanted to play this game for like the past 17 years just for how pretty it looks. I think it's good, and I think it's fine. I think that if you're looking for a compelling action RPG, I would much sooner recommend the sequel. But like if you're after, if you're a Falcom connoisseur and you are, after an artifact from a not so busy time in their development life. I mean, this was like it'd been 6 years since Ys 5. I don't really think they were doing many action RPGs at the time. They were wrapping up the pre-Trails Legend of Heroes games. So it was kind of a quiet time for them, and you know, a rare action RPG from this quiet time that's just, you know, been uncovered. It's absolutely worth a look at, but I think know what you're in for if you're going to check it out. And also, it's unbalanced to the point where, like, I think Ilvard Insurrection had this problem too, but where much like the sequel, you're eating food to gain levels as well as heal yourself, and you need a lot of EXP to gain levels, and food does not give you very much EXP at all. So there's quite a grind to it, and a single level will be the difference between getting one-shotted by a boss and just like taking the boss out in about a minute.
Oh, that's very Falcom. East games are like
that.
It
is, isn't it? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Like, oh, you got this one new piece of equipment, then you're totally going to be fine. Yeah.
That's it. I could not do anything in this dungeon until I gained one level, and then it was just like the easiest thing in the world.
Huh. Interesting that it's that severe. Well, another interesting sort of like relic from its era is originally both of these. Yeah, these are both PC releases, and I think there was like a PSP port of each, right? But
yeah, there was.
But they had these built-in features that were like little widgets, I guess, is that the name that they use for them?
Where these are weird.
Yeah, all these sort of like miscellaneous functions that you would expect to see on a Windows 95 desktop, but it's included in the game. Like and I know in the second one there's like a pedometer that you can put on your screen, or there's a little calendar or a calculator or whatever. Like it's so strange. So the first one has that as well, right?
That's right. I've only unlocked 2 so far. I've got a clock where I can set it's keyed to your Windows clock, so I guess you know what time it is while you're playing. But like you can set an alarm. You get an achievement for that as well. I guess maybe, so you don't play too much. I can't really see it having a function. It's very funny, and you can have it either be like a digital display or a much larger analog display that takes up a good chunk of the screen. This ticking clock face. And then there's this weird kind of like mini game where if you leave your pet at home, he'll go off on an adventure of his own, and you can like watch his adventure in the corner of the screen. And like he walks along, and every so often he'll come to a crossroads, and then you have to hit either left trigger or right trigger to say like, go left, go right, talk to this person, ignore this person, and then at the end, like, they'll either find an item or they'll eat some food and then go back home and then roll around on the floor. It's just cute, like me, yeah. But it's I just want to roll on the floor and feel like garbage. It's distracting and strange, and I can't see myself playing with that like Tamagotchi micro game very much. But
it's a novelty.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's there. It feels like nothing else,
It's a little bit like the Final Fantasy VIII Pocket Station thing for the Chocobo game, or maybe the airship game for Skies of Arcadia on the VMU.
Yeah,
like some weird sort of asymmetrical
screen at all times.
Yeah, it's so odd, but I'm glad that they were able to still include those in the game. Like I could have easily seen them being like, these functions are weird and kind of archaic, so we are just going to excise them entirely. But instead, they sort of kept the original experience intact. So I like that.
Apparently, they've also kept in the typing of Ys. So I haven't unlocked that yet, but I look forward to doing so.
Yeah. Oh my God. Somebody released a standalone little executable of that many, many, many years ago that I remember getting because they were like, oh yeah, Zvaya is never going to come out here. So here's the typing of Ys, which if it isn't obvious from the name, it's basically just like, the typing of the dead or Mario teaches typing type thing where you just have Adol running along and you're typing out words. So strange. But how cool that they included that though.
I think it's a great little package. As I said, know what you're in for going in. It's super old school and pretty janky, but it's bursting with charm. And if you have time for these types of weird, 17-year-old action RPGs that feel like they're maybe 25 years old, I mean, with better writing, by all means, go all in. It's only like $15, I think. It's pretty cheap. It's so cute.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear positive feedback on it, especially after I enjoyed the second one. I think I might have to pop back around to the first, maybe when it's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I feel a little bad because Caitlin played Ni no Kuni 2 mostly, right? So you don't really have anything super new to chime in on this week?
No, I beat Ni no Kuni 2, and it was as good as I was feeling it was back when we last podcasted about it. And other than that, I've been doing my usual Final Fantasy 14 Savage grinding kind of things, and slowly but surely, I'm like a hair away from actually finishing Xenoblade 2. I've been so horribly delayed on actually beating that game because things keep coming out that I have to keep doing, like Sigmascape and 14. That takes a lot of my time.
Oh, I was gonna say like reporting a darn recording a darn podcast.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Like if I'd gotten up an hour earlier today, I think I probably would have beaten it just in time for this. But I'm that close. I am literally that close. It's going to be done today.
Yeah.
So
are you still as keen on it as you were going in? I mean, has it been a good journey? I'm so behind in this game. I've only just unlocked like the mercenaries.
yeah. I mean, take my words with a grain of salt. I've been super positive about the game pretty much the whole time, and I've been known to be a little defensive of it because I see so much of the issues being brought up as being kind of things that you can get over. They're nitpicks to me, but like, yeah,
and I've gone a long way to correct some of that too, or at least to add features that people wanted.
Yeah, but like they're little things. Like the map was not broken before they fixed it, and
it was annoying.
It works better now.
Annoying.
I will totally grant you that. It works better now, but it was not unusable the way it was when it launched. But that's, I don't want to like get into super like, it's an amazing game and all you people are wrong, because that's not what I'm saying. People have different opinions. It definitely will affect people different ways. The thing I'm the least keen about, and it's still the case now, is just the boobs being so stupidly big on some of the characters.
It's hard to get past.
Yeah, but I mean, like overall, yeah, I'm still super happy with it, and I'm enjoying the crap out of it. And I've had to force myself to stop doing so many side quests because I just wanted to beat the game. Mostly because I told Rob I would be done with it by April. And it's April tomorrow. So
how's that for keeping a bit alive? Yeah.
April Fools, Rob.
I will be done with it before it becomes April. And then Rob, if you want to come back for a spoiler cast on the game, although I don't know where Rob is.
He stopped playing it. Yeah,
I thought he didn't like it.
Consider this a challenge, Rob. You have to go back and beat the game so we can spoiler cast, and then you can talk about it.
Yeah. I think Peter has his copy now.
Oh yeah. I think he did sell it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same with didn't he sell Monster Hunter World too?
He did. He apologized to me, but because he sold it before I got to play with him or Jackie. But it wasn't his thing, and he realized that pretty quickly.
And that's okay.
That's fine.
We still love him.
I'll play more than enough to make up for him selling it.
Good. Well, good. Yeah. So you've just mostly been on the Xenoblade and Ni no Kuni train, so that's a good compartment to be on.
I think I might have to fire up Xenoblade after we cease tonight, because I'm itching to play it again.
Yeah, jump in. I thought it was okay overall, so I'd be interested in hearing your take as well. Well, there's only one more game that I really wanted to bring up specifically for our meteor discussion today, and that's The Alliance Alive. This is the sort of spiritual successor to The Legend of Legacy, and that came out in 2015, I believe.
No Filmia, though.
I know, what a bummer, but it does have Barbarossa, who's like an angrier Filmia.
Oh,
lizardy guy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, actually, he's not really angry even. He's just a little gruff. He's a good guy. The Alliance Alive is the follow-up to that. So The Legend of Legacy was sort of pitched as a new age saga type game. It was created by some of the people who had worked on previous Saga series games, and I mean more like Romancing Saga than Saga Frontier, although they have their similarities. The thing that does seem Saga Frontier-ish about The Legend of Legacy, at least, is that one lets you choose a party of 3 characters out of, I want to say 7 or 8 or so, maybe 9. And the whole shtick with that was you're like adventurers going to explore this uncharted island. And The Legend of Legacy kept intact a lot of the Saga battle system mechanics, like awakening to new abilities in the middle of battle, or the sort of random stat leveling after battles. But it was so directionless, and it didn't really have much in the way of a story at all. And
That's what really bothered me about that game. I mean, not only did they get Masato Kato to like write their story, and then there just was no story.
Whoa, he's still working?
That was like the first thing he'd done since I think like Ninja Gaiden 3.
He did Sands of Destruction for the DS. Was like the last time I heard his name being said somewhere.
I think Ninja Gaiden 3 was after that.
Sure, all right.
But yeah, so they contracted him and he didn't do anything. And then, I mean, what I like about the Saga games is, I mean, yeah, I like their battle systems okay, but I like, you know, finding your way through this world and meeting these people and seeing what's going on. It's, you know, this grand exploration. And Legend of Legacy wasn't really that.
No,
you know?
because at least
here's a bunch of discrete dungeons with no story around them.
Yes, so at least in, say, Saga Frontier, depending on who you chose as your playable character, you would start in a different spot, and then you would sort of become exposed to different facets of each of the weird areas in the game. Like there was the futuristic sort of slummy city. There was like the monster world where Ricky is from. Like it felt like there were at least these very distinct areas that had some history to them, or at least some interesting people populating them.
There were vignettes and quests too, though. It wasn't just like fill in the map, which I didn't play a whole bunch of Legend of Legacy. I dropped off pretty early, but I put in like a decent 15 hours, and I never really found anything more to do than to fill in the map.
No, that's it. And especially because there was some esoteric progression in terms of like, oh, if you want to like get a new part of the island to be uncovered, you have to find some specific spell and then cast it on something. Like it felt so aimless. So I think the Alliance Alive, the game that we're actually talking about, borrows some of the design inspirations of The Legend of Legacy and delivers what I think is a much more cohesive and coherent game that has an actual narrative that has a beginning, middle, and end. And the characters actually have dialogue and they have personalities and stuff. Now,
it sounds way better.
Yeah, so I don't see this as like, it's not the second coming of RPGs by any means, but it was written by, I should have looked up the names beforehand, but they had one of the original writers from the Suikoden series. I don't remember if they worked on all the Suikodens.
No, not one of the writers. This is Murayama, the creator of Suikoden.
Okay.
He left partway through Suikoden 3, which is why all the games that came after that were prequels or alternate universes. He wanted to tell this big grand story, but then like he got promoted because Suikoden 2 did so well. So then he just left Konami.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So we've got him on board writing the story. So this is actually like a decently, I wouldn't say it is incredibly complex, but it is at least layered enough that characters have sort of distinct motivations and there are some exciting moments throughout the story. The main conceit of the narrative is that humans are living under the rule of demons who are, they're basically like a ruling class and humans are nothing. And then between the two, there's beast folk, which are like dog, cat, bird, lizard people. So it's
Mike, you brought up Sands of Destruction.
No.
So
that game was not great.
No, it's really not. So there's an interesting inversion from the start of, humans at the bottom and then non-human races at the top. And that's not like the most original thing ever, but at least, it's kind of an interesting premise. So the characters, of which there are 9 main characters, and there are actually more than that who will join your party, but they're all living in this world that's been divided into 5 parts, 5 different realms, and each of which has sort of a distinct biome, and the demons are ruling over in different ways. And the story starts off with 2 characters, Galil and Azura, who are young sort of freedom fighters who want to rise up in this resistance against the demons. But fairly quickly, you realize that the demons are extremely powerful and that they will not suffer uprising. So, like, bad things happen to the characters pretty quickly. And it's not like the most dire thing ever, but I was genuinely surprised at the direction it went pretty quickly. It makes it clear that the demons are an imposing force and that these characters really are in a horrible spot to be ruled by them. Of the characters, so you sort of like play as, unlike Saga Frontier, you don't choose a character at the start and follow them independently. Like all the characters come together. You play as 2 to 4 characters, specific characters for like 5 chapters, and then you switch to some other characters for a few chapters, and so on, until they all coalesce about midway through the game, a little bit earlier than midway. So, of those characters, most of them are human. There is one beast folk who's on the side of the resistance, and then there are actually two demons. And these demons are just sort of like they almost look like cat people, whereas a lot of the demons that are ruling, there's one that looks like a weird Nightmare Before Christmas monstrosity. But then there are other ones, like the principal antagonists, who are these really flowy, kind of ethereal, almost angelic looking beings, and they're still called demons, but they had this disaffected kind of demeanor that I find really compelling and kind of chilling. So I was
Sounds like the SMT4's interpretation of the archangels.
Yeah, something like that. So a little bit, maybe not quite as
I like
extreme,
that.
because they're still humanoid, but they have unusual color schemes and ornamentations in their outfits and stuff that I found cool. So the art is a decently high point. I think the character portraits, like the art style, it retains that kind of chibi style that the Legend of Legacy had, and I don't think that's the best. There's some really amazing art that is used, much like with the Legend of Legacy, like promotional art that's outside of that. That's like these really lavish illustrations that don't exactly mesh up with the way characters are represented in the game. That being said, so it's not a free-form game. It is a linear story from start to finish. So the characters, you play as each one for a little bit, they come together, and then they go on this sort of quest to unite all of the humans, or sort of the people who would resist, around the world and create the Alliance, and the Alliance will fight back against the demons. So in another Suikoden-y twist, there is a system wherein you recruit people for your Alliance, and they can be like guild masters or guild members of these 5 different guilds. There's got Recon, Tactics, Library, Blacksmith, and Signomancy, which is like a mage guild. Unfortunately, in practice, I don't think this system is as compelling as it should be. The way it kind of works out is just like you go around the world and talk to nameless NPCs who, like, each one at least says something unique, but they'll just sort of join you, and you plop them into a guild of your choice, and that guild will level up. Each guild confers some effects on your characters, like the Blacksmith Guild, for example. The more you level that up, you can develop more armor and weapons. Or like the Signomancy Guild, which is spells. More people you put in there, and the more you level it up, the more spells you can develop for your characters. That being said, magic feels really weak and impotent in this game, so I didn't really mess with it that much. There's also a demon-specific kind of magic called sorcery that only 2 characters can use, and that sort of feels stronger to me. But where was I going with this? So the guilds also support you in battle in various ways. Like if you are near an area where one of your guilds is, they have these like towers that are stationed. If you're near one of those towers, the guild may randomly assist you in battle. If you're near the Blacksmith Guild, like near a tower, then they may fire a cannon at your enemies and do some damage to them at the beginning of a turn. So there's some strategy in once you get to that part of the game, which, by the way, is about halfway. Yeah, I'd say it's about halfway through. So you play for quite a while before you access these features. But then there becomes some strategy in determining like where you want to build guild towers in each area, and there's a finite number of spots to do that. So the whole banding together a large number of people to fight back against a common threat, that feels pretty Suikoden-esque, and I do appreciate that. It also keeps the saga sort of battle system of awakening to random attacks in the middle of battle. You get more proficient with the weapon that you use, depending on how much you use it. Your HP will just go up randomly at the end of battle. So those things are pretty cool, but I don't feel like the game is super balanced. Maybe it's more balanced. It is more balanced than the Legend of Legacy, and I think it's better overall. But it does, because it is subject to random number generation in a lot of ways, you'll have periods where it's like, oh, I'm invincible. I'm just crushing enemies. And then you'll get to a boss or something that's like impossible. And you have to, either totally re-outfit your characters or like just sort of grind, until you randomly get a bunch of stat ups. So, in that way, it's still very saga and frustrating. And there isn't, there's some exploration in terms of how, if you want to go around and find characters to join the Alliance, you can do that independently. And the world map is pretty large. And there's actually some interesting world map puzzles. You have something called the Ornithopter early on. So instead of like an airship right away, you just have this little manual Flappy Bird looking thing that you can fly with. But the caveat is that you can only descend basically. Like if you want to go across a gap on the world map, the destination has to be lower in elevation than where you currently are. So it creates some puzzles where it's like, I'm going to explore the world map and like get as high as I can, and then try to fly off of it and find a cool hidden cave or something. Generally, all that really amounts to is like a treasure chest. So there's not a giganto incentive to explore, but at least there is some exploration, and the game feels a lot more structured than The Legend of Legacy. I've kind of gone on and on about this. I think that the overall story is like it's fine. It's not revolutionary, but it's fine. And the characters, some of them don't really get to shine so much because other characters are taking up more of the spotlight. But at least they're entertaining and they play pretty well off of one another. The one thing that I absolutely have to mention is the soundtrack. Oh man,
it's Hamauzu, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Masashi Hamauzu, so the composer for Final Fantasy 13, the 13 trilogy, and Saga. Like he did Saga Frontier 2, right?
Frontier 2 and Unlimited Saga.
Okay,
and those
which
were
has an
both,
amazing
like,
soundtrack.
the best soundtracks in that series.
Yeah, so I think the Alliance Live soundtrack is phenomenal. It's so good. It's really eclectic and weird. Like each of the worlds, the 5 realms, has a different world map theme, and there's no transition into battle music when you're on the world map for each of those places. Like it just keeps playing the theme as you jump into battle and jump out. And I found that it was like really evocative and effective. The first world is the rainy realm, I think, and I'm trying to place how it sounds in my head. Well, there's like the rainy realm, there's the burning realm, there's the caged realm. The caged realm is the one that really stands out to me. It's got like this really crunchy, dark electronic sound with almost like sirens in the background. And it is not, I think that the music does an incredible job of creating atmosphere that this game would not otherwise have. Like I was very surprised at many points what the music sort of evoked or made me feel over what may have been depicted on the screen. So I feel like this is a game that is like super, super, super augmented by its musical score. And I think it's one of Hamauzu's best. Maybe not. Sorry, go ahead.
His work on Legend of Legacy was like one of the best things about that game.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. Yeah. I'd say it's on that level, if not a bit elevated, just because there's more variety. And some of the tracks I think are just like incredibly, incredibly strong. And there's a few that are a little ho-hum, but overall, I think that soundtrack is amazing. So even if you're not going to check out the Alliance Alive, absolutely go and look up the soundtrack and see some of those tracks like Caged Realm or Rainy Realm or whatever. And the main battle theme was also really good. So yeah, just excellent stuff. So I liked it, and maybe you'll like it too.
I'm super curious. I mean, I'm definitely going to check out the soundtrack no matter what, but like I've played everything Furyu has brought out in America, and I've either felt like nothing at all or extreme revulsion in the case of Caligula.
So thing.
I just I've been given a lot of pause to Alliance Alive, but it does sound like it's at least decent.
It's decent. Yeah, I don't think it's like amazing. I reviewed it for my other outlet, and I believe I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. So that's nice. Scores are arbitrary, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought it was fine. So
I might give it a shot. I'll think about it.
Yeah, at least look it up. Look up that music. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our big meaty game discussions for today. But there are a couple of things I wanted to touch on before we let you all go. And one of those is, so this is the 20th anniversary of RPG Fan, if you can believe it. We've been around since 1998. Maybe not each one of us individually, but the site has been. I think it's like 8 years for me, which feels like yesterday. But so as part of that 20th anniversary celebration, we've been putting out some 20th anniversary features. And so we recently had that Final Fantasy feature, which was to celebrate, 30 years of Final Fantasy on our 20th year? Something like that. So our newest one is the 20 years of essential RPG soundtracks, which, I mean, if you're an RPG music nerd like me, this is like manna from heaven. It's got what everybody has put together. I actually didn't write anything for this, so I have to totally applaud everybody else who was involved. Caitlin, Rob, you were involved. Solosi, were you?
I was not involved in this one.
Oh, you weren't, Robert?
No. Didn't have time.
Okay.
I wrote
an amazing job.
I wrote one blurb, but so barely involved.
Oh, well, it's still involved. I know Caitlin did some for sure.
Yeah, I did 3.
Okay, cool. Well, so what we have is the semi-definitive Fight Us ranking of RPG soundtracks over the last 20 years. And this was really, really tough. There were so many landmark games and landmark soundtracks over those 2 decades that it's like some of the years weren't even fair. Like in 1998, there was Xenogears, Parasite Eve, and Ocarina of Time. In 1999, there was Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy VIII, Saga Frontier 2, and Persona 2: Innocent Sin. Like,
I think 2006 is the most brutal one because that's Persona 3, Final Fantasy 12, and Kingdom Hearts 2.
Oof. Yeah. So even if, and believe us, there was deliberation, and this voting process was so intense because we let every game basically be eligible for each of these years. And we used this like Google poll that was just massive and had the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of entries to go through and select which ones we thought were the best. And then we sort of narrowed it down and then did it again. So, don't take this as us not paying attention or like intentionally overlooking stuff. These were really hard choices. And even what we did select, may still be contentious to a lot of people. But what we did was just try to highlight games and their soundtracks that were important. Like we focused more on the soundtrack releases. Like, so even if a game came out the year after, but the soundtrack came out the previous year in terms of like the Japanese release, we counted it for that year. So
I think they just took the release years from VGMDB.
But the release of the soundtrack, not the game. That was
right.
Which is why you might notice that Xenoblade 2 is not in contention for 2017, even though the game came out in both around the world in 2017. That's because we're not getting official release of the soundtrack until May of this year. So clearly, we're going to do this again for like 40 years of soundtracks or 30 years of soundtracks, and then we'll see if Nier is still 2017's best soundtrack.
Right, yeah. It may very well be. We'll see. Yeah, so there was a lot of fun, sort of friendly fighting over this, and we had a great time putting it together. Again, I thoroughly applaud everybody who wrote these blurbs. But yeah, if you're just interested in sort of refreshing your memory, or if you want to, take a trip down memory lane and look at some of these old soundtrack reviews that we've got and stuff, some of them, like, forgive us because, some of these were written in 1998 or so, and so they may be a little bit rougher than what you're used to with RPG fans' current standards. But that being said, it's still a really comprehensive list, and it's got a lot of, we've got like soundtrack samples and stuff on a lot of these pages. So, yeah, take a look. It's currently on our main page. If you don't see it there, look either in the featured sidebar, or you can go ahead to the top of the RPG Fan main page and click on Features, which is near the right side, and you'll be able to access it from there. So we hope you enjoy looking through that.
You guys have got it so easy now that the samples aren't in a real media format anymore. I remember struggling so much to get that player to work like 20 years ago when putting out the samples.
Yeah, that was a struggle for sure. And then thanks to Mark, who was helping us with our backend stuff, he was able to get a lot of that set up with a more modern format. So it's not like,
hats off to Mark, amazing work.
I know. Mm-hmm. We obviously don't have the full soundtracks for all of these games up, but we have some samples. So yeah, click on through. If you have any particular thoughts about the list and want to send those in, please by all means, podcast@rpgfan.com. Send those our way, and maybe we can talk about it.
And before we move on, I also want to mention that we're doing basically a new feature every month for the year 2018, and this was basically the March feature. So we did a 20 localizations feature in February and a best RPGs of 1998 in January. So there's going to be more things like this coming this year.
Yeah. So we hope you continue to enjoy it because, as always, everything that we do at RPG Fan is a total passion project, and it's obvious the passion that all of our editors have in getting this stuff out there because it shows through in the finished product. So major kudos to everybody involved. I just wanted to talk about a couple of quick hits of news that are both pretty big deals, I guess. One I care about much more than the other, but Solosi, we wanted to bring up, we got like a firm release date for God of War, which went gold.
Yeah, we've known about the April 20th release date for a while, but they released videos and previews of a lot of stuff in the game in the last week of March, and it looks cool. You can do axe techniques and then throw your axe and then have it come back to your hand real fast, like Marvel's Thor style. And they talked about how you can customize your move set by meeting with dwarven smithies and have them forge runes and gems into your axe and stuff. Basically, the combat looks very, very cool and very, very God of War. And I think we're going to cover it for the site because we decided it was RPG enough.
Yes, we are covering it. There are RPG elements. There's experience that you get from. It looks like not from individual enemies, but you get them upon finishing encounters with groups of enemies. Kratos has stats that apparently can be changed. It's not. I'm not sure yet if it's from leveling up by itself or if you put the experience into your equipment and whatnot, and that gives you more stats. The equipment itself also has stats their own, and you can craft equipment. And then, of course, like Pelosi mentioned, there's being able to equip runes into your weapons. So there are enough RPG elements that we decided that it fits into our coverage. So we are covering it, and you guys can look forward to a review. Hopefully soon. We still kind of up in the air when we're going to be able to get started on that, but it should be soon. So.
Yeah. It's hard to predict when they send codes to us. So yeah, sometimes we can get it comfortably day one. Sometimes it takes a week or two.
Right, and best when it's ahead of launch. But as always, we're just going to do our best to get it to you as quickly as possible. So, the other announcement that I wanted to bring up that is so much more exciting, not to be like a jerk about it or anything, but we have been waiting for this one. Dragon Quest XI, guys.
I like God of War a lot, but I am much more excited by Dragon Quest XI.
Yes, Dragon Quest XI finally has a release date. It is September 4th, 2018, and that puts it. Geez, when did it come out in Japan last year? Is that going to be like a year out?
It was over the summer. So it's over a year, yeah.
Okay. But we're finally getting it. Curiously, we're not getting the 3DS version because they said they want to focus on sort of developing the Dragon Quest brand, and they think that their best sales are going to be on the PS4, and they're also making a new Steam version, which will mirror the PS4 version for the West. So
it's a little bit of a bummer, but hey, it looks beautiful on PS4, so I'm glad that we're getting it at all.
And Switch is still, as of right now, coming just much later. They reaffirm that they do want to release it in North America and Europe. It's not like necessarily a super hard firm confirm like, yes, we are definitely going to bring it out here on Switch, but they're definitely, I think, interested in doing it. And they just, for whatever reason, probably because of trying to figure out how to get it to scale onto the Switch, they have to take more time with it. So
I don't think the Japanese version's out yet.
It's not out yet, and they confirm it's not going to be coming out this year on Switch. So
wow,
so that's a bit of a bummer, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with it on Switch. If it's just going to be the PS4 version scaled back a little bit to make it run nicely on the Switch, or if they're going to do something interesting. I know people have been saying it'd be really cool if the Switch version was able to bring in some of the sort of chibi style graphics from the 3DS version, because we are no longer getting that version, but we'll see what happens.
I think it'd be better if they just upscaled the 3DS version and made that the Switch version.
Yeah, at least it would be different from what we're getting. My pipe dream was like if it could run the 3DS version handheld and run the PS4 version docked graphically, at least.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And then I don't know where the 2D version would be left with all of that, but
and it's too bad because North America has gotten literally every Dragon Quest game 1 through 9 on a Nintendo handheld. So this breaks the combo in a disappointing way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Switch is a handheld as well.
Hopefully the Switch version turns out all right and we get it soon-ish. But I couldn't be more excited for Dragon Quest XI. It's one of my favorite series.
Yeah.
And we also get some goodies that the Japanese release does not.
We get voice work.
We get voice acting. Yes.
Yeah. Which is funny because that sort of feels inseparable from Dragon Quest now, seeing as the dub for 8 was so well received. So I almost can't imagine like a high-def 3D Dragon Quest without British voice acting. So I'm glad that we're getting that. Yeah.
I'm guessing they just were trying to sort of keep with tradition because my understanding is that it was just there was localization of 8 that got voice acting, and then when they ported it to 3DS, then they got voice acting in Japan. So
that's correct. Yes,
all of the original releases of Dragon Quest games in Japan have not had voice acting. So I guess they just wanted to sort of keep it traditional there. I don't know.
Well, they also changed the menus and the reorchestrated the soundtrack for the worldwide version of Dragon Quest VIII. So and they did it, I think, to make it fit in more with modern RPGs, where what they were. I think they were worried the Western audiences wouldn't have the patience for some of the DQ series, bull crap that they've stuck to over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, it still had the same, like the tiny little black and white menu that covers up a quarter of the screen in the PS2 version of Dragon Quest VIII, and they changed that to a cutaway menu for the North American version. But anyway, this game looks gorgeous. I can't wait to play it on a big screen where everything looks so pretty that it hurts my eyes a little bit. And there's a big cover of Edge magazine in the UK that was just nothing but a giant blue slime.
Okay, I saw an alternate cover with like
with the tree.
Big, yeah, that's beautiful.
Maybe it's multiple ones, but everything about this game looks beautiful.
It does. And then, as you were saying, with those enhancements for the Dragon Quest VIII International version, they're doing something similar for us with Dragon Quest XI. They're going to be overhauling the menus and UI, so it's going to be a little bit more graphical for what they say is more intuitive navigation, and at the very least, it's more in line with what we've been getting in the past. There's also a new camera mode, so it's probably something a la Horizon Zero Dawn, which will allow players to take in views of the landscapes and take pictures of it. So that's cool. I really appreciate that there's sort of a movement of people creating these personalized experiences via in-game photography and then showing that to the world. So I can imagine there being some cool stuff to do with that. And then
nice wallpaper generator.
For sure. Yeah, because the game is so colorful and pretty. There was a hard mode in the Japanese version, but they're calling it the Draconian Quest, which I think is very cheeky and cute. And a dash function and some other system enhancements to character and camera movement, they say. So it's sort of anybody's guess how much more extensive the changes are, but at the very least, it's sort of justifying that year-ish delay from the Japanese version to the localization, because they're at least adding to it. So yeah, so right now you can pre-order it. You get a cool theme for your PS4, and you can look forward to that coming out in September on the 4th. So I can't wait. Well, guys, with that being said, I think that's going to wrap up our discussion for today's show. We hope you've enjoyed listening. If you like the show, please consider giving us a shout out on the iTunes store. If you just look us up on iTunes and leave us a review, that would be awesome. You can also send us feedback to podcast@rpgfan.com. And I'm going to be a little bit more, I was going to say judicious, but I'm going to check it more. So I have access to it. It's on my phone. If an email comes through, I'm going to read it, and I'll do my best to respond in a timely manner. But rest assured that I will read it, if nothing else. So yeah, if you like the show, you can subscribe to our RSS feed. You can check us out on the main page at rpgfan.com/podcast. If you want to see our back episodes, it's all there. So I hope you've continued to enjoy the show and will continue to enjoy it in the future. So for Caitlin, Michael, Nathan, and Robert Fenner, we will see you all later.